Today's video is all about KEETA, where networks connect. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into this project, looking into some of the fundamentals such as the team, the tokenomics, the utility, and the overall value proposition, trying to figure out whether KEETA has what it takes to make it to our portfolio. So you know what, let's talk about the news, let's analyze the charts, and let's strategize to capitalize. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and let's get right into it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. On the channel, we talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the altcoins, looking for opportunity. And the question is KEETA an opportunity? Guys, we're going to be doing a deep dive today, looking into some of the fundamentals here on this project. Obviously, we are going to be taking a retail perspective. Obviously, we want to just be able to ensure that the team has given us all the little details in order to become fundamentally bullish. We'll be using the main website as our platform to navigate this project, and any other links or any other third-party applications to kind of give us an edge to, figuring out what KEETA is. All right, guys, so let's begin. Let's see what we got here on the main website. Let's scrape through the website, open some links, and get going. Where networks connect, KEETA serves as a common ground for all payment networks and assets. Okay, sounds pretty good. Payment networks, assuming that it's trying to replicate our current payment network systems that we do have as a, basically as a centralized identity. All of our payment networks pretty much work in a very centralized way. So let's see what they're trying to offer here. Key features: one network ready for anything. Okay, that's pretty broad. Ready for anything. Move assets across networks. KEETA enables interactions across multiple blockchains by acting as a unified layer directly across chain transactions. That's interesting. Obviously, cross compatibility is very, very important. To see these chains work together is going to give us a lot of liquidity across the chains. Instead of isolating our liquidity to a particular chain, a lot of the projects in this cycle have realized that cross compatibility or cross chain compatibility is ideal. So I'm glad to see that they're keeping up with the wave. Trade real world assets. You guys know real world assets, RWA, has been a very hot narrative, tokenizing different assets. So you can see create tokens to represent any asset, trade between them, and unlock new liquidity. Pretty good. Okay, at least we got something there. And compliance when it counts. Okay, this is a big topic here for me with regarding to KEETA. So KEETA basically meets regulations for traditional finance channels. No extra friction required. So this is something where we have to really think about this. Compliance, usually what it means is being registered or following the guidelines of the traditional space, which, for the most part, yes, it does reduce a lot of friction if you're able and willing to comply. But at the end of the day, we've seen a lot of the crypto space, trying to rejig and reform our financial industry into something new and different that does not involve the traditional outlets. Is this possible? The reality is that KEETA is taking a different approach. We have a good handful of projects that are looking to comply, that are looking to work seamlessly with our traditional, outlets that we do have, particularly with payments. And it's not the worst case scenario. Just if you're looking for something that is completely decentralized and all obviously has that layer of, being anonymous or even full custody, that's very important, obviously, here in this crypto space. But there are plenty of projects that are taking a different approach, with the KYC and all that kind of thing. So you have to figure out where you lie on the spectrum. Are you pro, KYC and all that, know your customer, or are you against know your customer? You want privacy. This is something that you really have to, think about, right? It looks like KEETA is looking for the route to be fully compliant, and based on that, KYC is necessary, and based on that, compliance with traditional finance is necessary, and based on that, licenses, agreements are, with local authorities and government institutions have to be thought of, right? So here we are. It's two sides. You either pro or nay, and at the end of the day, you got to make that decision. Scalable by design, KEETA delivers 10 million TPS and 400 millisecond settlement. So speed, guys, we have a lot of speedy chains nowadays in this cycle. Key to enabling a unified network. Okay, so that's good, nice and fast, and so on. KEETA is orders of magnitude more scalable and efficient than existing solutions. That's the quote here by Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google and KEETA investor. So we have to understand that this is a big, bold statement that a lot of individuals are hinging upon that are bullish on KEETA. Look, it is really nice to see that we have a heavyweight from Google, ex-CEO of Google, as an investor and obviously making such a quote. Now, we're going to see a lot of tech out there make such, bold statements that they're fast and the magnitude and, the efficiency, that they're the most efficient, they are the fastest. Guys, right now, that's the biggest talk. And to be honest, I don't care. I don't care who's the fastest. I don't care, what's really happening with all those little details with regards to speed. If they're all fast, we're going to have to count that as a given, right? It's a given. There's a lot of good fast chains out there that are fast enough and that are claiming, scalability to the max, infinite scalability, and all of that is fairly valid, and all of that is, basically it gets neutralized. So what do we have to do is move on from this kind of thing of the scalability thing, because there's lots of software solutions that claim to be infinitely scalable. Now let's put the volume in and let's see if it's fact. Theory and fact is one thing, and ultimately there's a lot of theory on a lot of coins out there, including KEETA, that they're infinitely scalable. I'm going to take it for a given that it is, and I'm going to, believe that that's the fact based on its tech, because its tech is complex and very, very robust, which is great. But ultimately, guys, there's lots of chains that are claiming the same thing. Okay, so you got to make your decisions as to, which team you're going to go to. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're just going to start looking at, some of the fastest chains out there and pepper in some capital and, gain that exposure. Built-in tokenization. So KEETA network natively integrates token and rule engines, enabling participants to create and manage digital or real-world assets with comprehensive control and compliance built directly into the protocol. So there's a couple of words here that I want to emphasize on. Obviously, it's the control, comprehensive control. So you're able to use the blockchain technology to obtain functionalities, right, that will help you retain and basically have comprehensive control over your assets. And obviously that is given by the fact that it's fully compliant across the board. So this means that because they're compliant, they're likely to be able to run their chain and their business that they got going on here without any friction or any issues going forward. So not bad of a scenario if you're looking for that type of route. Built in compliance. So again, the compliant aspect. So you're going to see the words or the concept of KYC. KEETA network provides regulatory compliance and digital identity verification. So this is a big part nowadays, especially as we're seeing AI get integrated into daily life, and we're expecting the agents now to be a big part of our daily life. And not only that, now obviously given the fact that the identities have been blurred just a little bit given AI, I think tokenizing and having some sort of verification process by a trusted KYC provider is very, very necessary, no doubt. But of course, with know your customer concepts, you're basically relinquishing your identity in online. And for most of us and that had the time to think about KYC, identity at the end of the day, guys, is probably the most valuable asset that you have. It is the most valuable asset that you have. And for the most part, a lot of us are not willing to relinquish this value to such a speculative space, and also known as the crypto space. So, KEETA, at the end of the day, are we willing to put our names and faces and identities, passports, as you can see here in this little image, on a crypto project? I don't know if many of us will. And for me personally, privacy and identity is the most valuable thing that you could ever have. So think about that. Let's continue going down. Decentralized marketplace, leverage KEETA's cross-chain protocol and tokenized assets. So you can see they have a nice marketplace where you can get in and trade, instant cross-chain swaps, real-time liquidity streaming. I'm wondering if they even have this really active and going. A lot of the times, especially with new projects, these are all speculative in the sense that they're in the works and so on. So we're gonna have to see a little bit more about that. Discover how we're taking blockchain technology to new heights. I like the fact that throughout the documentation, which I'll show you in a bit, because there's layers, guys. There's layers of documentation here for KEETA. I'm just going to pause here before we move on and just make a general statement. I'm going to say that out of the years of me releasing deep dives and videos, KEETA is probably the most complicated project that I've come across. I would say it is the most complicated, and not only is it complicated, to the degree that it is far beyond any other that I've ever seen. Which means that there's a little bit of an issue here, because as you're reading through, you're expecting to understand, especially when you start looking at documentation, what the true value proposition is. And fortunately, it's very clear that what the value proposition is as you go through the website. But as you go down and start to dig deeper, you get lost with the idea of how is it achieved. And that is where, fundamentals really kick in, particularly with a tech perspective. Now, you guys know that these deep dives are not tech deep dives, right? We're not engineers. We're not, mathematicians. We're not physicists. And at the end of the day, we are just trying to figure out what KEETA is offering and do our best to understand how. And with this understanding, right, there's a layer of education that is required. And their approach is pretty interesting by comparing KEETA with other competitors, like Ethereum and so on, which we'll see in a second. But ultimately, I don't think that's enough, because a lot of their documentation, and this is a common consensus throughout the space, after speaking to many individuals about KEETA, the biggest friction, the biggest issue that most of us have, including myself, like I said, I've have 120 deep dives under my belt, and I've never been so, lost with the tech in all my deep dives that I've ever covered. So is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? I don't know. But when you have a nice deep project with a wide tech stack and lots of utility, it's great. But it would be nice to be able to understand that. So my objective here is to basically say what KEETA needs to do is have a dedicated portion on their website to fully fledged educate people about what KEETA is and how it achieves its functionalities and its overall value proposition. And this is not the only time I've seen this. Like, a lot of projects take that educational approach, and it does work, because if a person is willing to take the time to understand what KEETA is offering and how it achieves it, then what happens is you have the opportunity to make that person fundamentally bullish through education. So here we are. So that's just a side note. And you can see they're trying to educate us right now by saying, look, KEETA's fast, as you can see, transaction fees reduced, as you can see, competitors, very vague. And we're talking about, most likely we're talking about Ethereum, and that's usually the target, is to hit Ethereum over the head with some comparisons. But, it's not really being compared to others that are, trying to fight for the same type of objective with speed and, finality and low gas fees. And there's a lot of them, guys. So we can't compare Ethereum anymore. And as you guys know, my stance on Ethereum is not very secured, in the sense that, there's a lot of tech coming out right now that's going to give Ethereum run for its money, no doubt. Okay, so here it is. That's the website. It's conclusive here with this website. Now, I'll tell you this. The website is nice. It's very interesting. It's clean. It's clear, but it doesn't offer any detail. Like, what is it? Like, really? Okay, it's a payment network. Okay, cool. I've seen other websites with a little bit more. So let's see what we got here with some of these links. Now, this is one of the white papers that I was able to get my hands on. Now, it's relatively new. You can see that we got some of the lead members, core members right up here, which we're going to talk about some of those in a second. But this white paper is probably not the best way to go through this project. I'm just going to show you what I mean. It's a very traditional type of white paper. I appreciate it. Of course, you're more than welcome to read through it and put it through AI and do your thing. But for the most part, it's a tough read this way. Okay, and I'm happy to present that they have other ways of absorbing this information. information. This is one of them, okay? And then we have another one, which is this. Let me just quickly scroll up so that you can see what it looks like. It's a KEETA product manual, which is another form of demonstrating some of its information. Again, very complex. It shows you the data structures and how things work and things like that. You can see all the little diagrams, which is great. More education, but if you read this, guys, it's not at a very layman's level, retail investor level. So that's a very important thing, because you guys know my deep dives are from a retail perspective. A retail investor is going to read this and just totally get lost, because there's too much happening from a technical perspective, right? So, and especially when you start talking about its tech stack or its product offerings, and we'll talk about that in a second. You'll see what I mean. But then finally, what I found the most valuable, and you guys know how much I like them, it's the GitHubs, right? The Git books, sorry. The Git books are amazing. So this is what I found the most value. I was able to search through it. I was able to get a nice and clean layout. So I'm going to stick with this one for today. Okay, so we got 3 different layers of material, and they try to really educate, but I think it needs to be done in a different way. Maybe videos, small videos or something like that. Okay, so let's take a look at the introduction. KEETA Network is a high-performance L1 network designed to serve as a common ground for all asset transfers. So it's cross-chain. I'll just tell you right now that this cross-chain capability is very limited, given the fact that it's not EVM compatible just yet. Do they have plans to do that? Yes. When they do it, they're going to expand significantly, which is important. Of course, token utilities also depend on its ecosystem, and if we can become EVM compatible, it's a lot easier to introduce ecosystem growth. Okay, we know this. This is a common factor. In addition to interoperability, KEETA has also introduced unprecedented performance. We talked about this, the speed. So you can check it out. This is their plan of how to get things going: Bitcoin, merchants, KEETA wallets, and so on and so forth. Lots of stuff happening here. A little bit of repetition, so I'm not going to, totally take some time there. Now, from its architecture perspective and its data structure, it's not a blockchain per se. Okay, its approach is a DAG, which is direct acyclic graph, DAG. So what basically it is that it's not a linear blockchain. It's a blockchain that's multidimensional. So usually when you look at a blockchain, when a block is added to the chain, it's done sequentially, very linearly, one at a time added to the chain. In this case, you have multiple dimensions. And based on that, you can basically, add blocks, let's say, and validate blocks in parallel instead of sequential. And parallel means that you can go and basically bounce around, let's put it that way, and get a lot of these blocks going simultaneously rather than linearly. So parallel processing eliminates the bottleneck that plagues traditional systems. Network activity increases, enabling KEETA to scale. And that whole parallel transaction type of idea is what allows it to scale very easily. It's not the first of its kind. I'm just throwing it out there. So pretty good stuff there from the DAG. Now, if you look at the consensus, it has its own little consensus mechanism. It's called Delegated Proof of Stake Voting Protocol, which allows for quick consensus. This is what gives its consensus mechanism that speed. Okay, so I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but there's like a phase of temporary votes, providing the initial validation, and then a little bit of a recycle of that, where it goes back into the into the voting, and then eventually becomes fully voted on, and so on. So look, it's just a little bit of a cycle through of its, and then eventually gets the user, it goes to the peer-to-peer network and stuff like that. So read through it, guys. It's another delegated proof of stake that essentially makes things a little bit more efficient than others. Vote stapling. Okay, let's not get into too much detail there, because you can see that eventually just defines a few words. You can do your homework there, guys. I'm not going to get into too much detail, because it's literally not a tech review. And nonetheless, this video is going to take 5 hours long, given that KEETA is complicated. Now, I quickly want to get into its components, because this is where the complication begins, okay? Right into here. Now, I'm going to do my best, guys, okay? Because this is what I would classify its internal ecosystem as well, right? This is what it has going on for it within its tech stack, and its tech stack operating this internal ecosystem, what it provides. So it's Ledger. It's got its Ledger. Then its ledger components, voting power, balances. So let me just back it up again. Its ledger is basically a place where it holds a lot of various types of information. it's not just one type of information, like value, let's say, or liquidity, or let's say identity or anything. In this case, it holds a lot of information. Traditionally, we just a ledger just holds transactional data, right? So ledger records everything on the network, including user identities, account balances, operation history, and votes. And obviously, this is a lot more information than we would expect from another blockchain. So this is pretty good, and you can see all the little details here, and it explains how it actually does all of this, or what it means to do this type of stuff. Which ultimately the ledger becomes an entire database of information, which is great because we know that data and information is quite key here. And because it has a layer of identity, the identity can be tagged to your account balance and your operational history, and your voting and all the other little things that might need some validity as far as your KYC. This is where the identity level gets involved, right? So they're keeping records of everything. And if this is something that interests you, right, KEETA is trying to go mainstream with this on a global level, and to achieve full compliance, a level of identity needs to be introduced, that KYC, as you can see, fully permeated throughout its tech stack here. Blocks, again, create a block. You can see that block KEETA network is fundamentally a mechanism, which is a ledger, is updated. Each block contains an order set, operations which are performed by a given account. So each block has multiple operations, and the little bit of detail here. So let's creating a block. You can see a little bit of information. Operations is about, the different functionalities that you have access to. So operations describe the actions performed by an account on the ledger. So there's different accounts. Okay, this is where things get a little bit hectic. We're going to talk about the types of accounts that can be created here with KEETA, but these accounts, just keep them vague for now. They are all fundamentally composed of effects, which are specific changes or constraints performed on the ledger. For example, there's a send function, okay? Operations which has the effects of decrementing the balance of sending, incrementing, and balance of the receiver. So being able to send, and in this case receive, this is the typical functionalities on a smart contract of sorts, right? Modifying token balance, modifying token supply, basically identifier, right? So this is important. An identifier, update permission. So a person's identity could have linked permissions to it. So this is what we're talking about, is that just like a function like sending could decrement and increment a balance. Very easy. Right, so this is what we're talking about. So these are some operations that are available. As you can see, you can look into that. Then there's nodes. Okay, the different nodes. Obviously, we need nodes for validation. A node is a piece of software that participates on the KEETA network. Nodes can be representatives that vote on the network or participants that are only on the network to view the operation. So there's different types of nodes. This is now we're getting to it. Now, one thing that I want to just bring to your attention real quick, okay, which you can see, nodes on KEETA network are hosted in cloud environments like a Google Cloud, allowing them to scale efficiently with the network. This is unfortunate because we know that Google Cloud is a centralized organization. So if their nodes, and again, there's not many out there, right, especially new projects, are on Google Cloud, that's a centralized choke point. Right? So is that an area of concern? Well, if you're taking a pure approach of talking about blockchain or crypto, right, that's a choke point. That's not a positive. If you're going from a traditional finance approach, or even for traditional tech approach, even say Web 2, that's a bonus. That's amazing. We trust Google, right? So you got to choose which side you're on. Do you appreciate that Google's involved here, or they are using the Google services to host their nodes, or are you not? Are you bullish on the fact that their nodes primarily could be run by the team and maybe the foundation? Is that that centralization interesting to you, given that, usually when we're talking about centralized identities that run their own nodes are probably the most efficient way to do it. It is the most efficient way to do it. One centralized authority to over controlling the network and controlling everything is always most efficient, but it's not decentralized. So you have to really make that clear for yourself. Is that interesting to you? Let's continue going down, right? So this is a highlight. Ledger pruning, okay, let's keep on going down. Okay, now this is where things get a little hectic. Okay, so accounts on KEETA network refer to either the public key of a key pair or a deterministically generated account. You can see even the way this is written, it's not retail friendly. Okay, so yeah, like some of the language and the way they're explaining things is definitely not for the average retail investor. What I'm going to do here, instead of reading these, I'm just gonna highlight some of these key things. Keyed accounts, generated accounts, network accounts, storage accounts, and token accounts. There's three types of accounts. Each account has a separate ordered blockchain within the DAG. So remember what I said, that the DAG is multi-dimensional, right? Well, within that dimension, right, you have different accounts, and each account is on a linear blockchain. When they're put together, you're in a DAG situation where it's multi-dimensional. So think about a bunch of layer one blockchains, right? Or blockchains that are literally linear in its architecture, stacked up on top of one another, creating a multi-dimensional array. In this case, that can be, run in parallel. In this case, we're talking about a DAG, right? So this is where my understanding of their architecture is as such, where you have each account has a separate ordered blockchain within the DAG. So again, DAG, multidimensional, each one of these accounts are a blockchain, and when they're put together, they form this DAG. KEETA Network hosts a variety of account types. Okay, let's talk about these account types very, very briefly, because again, this is where people are going to totally get lost. So we have now new blockchains that are created, and these blockchains are referred to as accounts. So an account chains, each user has their own chain. Token accounts define and manage assets. These are different accounts that we have here. Okay, so we have chain accounts, we have token accounts, which define and manage assets, certificates, right? These are other different characteristics, which we're going to talk about down here. You can see there are different types of, in a way, accounts, because these certificates hold identity, improve identity and trust. We have permissions, control who can do what. These are things that obviously allow that intelligence that that blockchains can offer, or that contracts can offer. Subnets, again, custom networks within KEETA. You can literally go there and create a custom L1 right from KEETA, custom blockchain right from KEETA. Operator accounts manage network rules. Generated accounts used for automation. So right here, used for automation and well-known information, such as it uses well-known information such as a network ID and some other aspects here. Ownership permissions will automatically be granted to the creator over the network generated account to publish block to the generated accounts chain. A keyed account with proper permissions must be signed a block for a generated account. Guys, the keyed accounts is probably the most interesting thing for me. Okay, because the keyed account, and generally, it basically it's basically a two-key system. So if you kind of read what's going on here, it says keyed accounts are comprised of private and public key pair. They can digitally sign a block and are generally the only kind of accounts on the other blockchains. On KEETA Network, these are the only accounts that can sign votes or blocks. So in this case, you have a key, one key that basically is holding your identity, and another key that's like a typical key that has your keys to your wallet. Well, the private key, and a public key at this case allows you to verify that the individual that is transacting is the individual that you are assuming it is, right? So very important here because, as you know, they are trying to provide a little bit of that identity clarity and transparency to their blockchain. So we have governance, token-based voting, identity, on-chain digital ID, and the rule engine enforce logic at account token level. So there's a lot here. And you can see that I'm not even going to get into all of these because there's so many different types of accounts that can be created, and therefore these accounts will be blockchains, literally chains on their own. So the key pairs, again, what are they? You have the public key and the private key. In the world of digital transactions, the key pair is like your personal lock and key set. It consists of a public key that can be freely shared. It's like your identity to verify who you are. It's like having a tag on your chest that says, "This is me. Hello, this is my name." And the private key is the key that is kept secret. On the KEETA network, when a user makes a transaction, they use their private key to sign it, okay, creating a unique stamp. And then you use your public key to verify that that stamp was created by someone that is verified. And that's what this dual key system is, what keeps the transactions accountable, from, a regulated perspective, that KYC and all that kind of stuff. And for me, this is obviously the path of least resistance because, again, it's easy to say or to tell regulators, hey, we are making sure that we know who is transacting on our chain based on the fact that we KYC and we keep all their data on chain as well, all their personal information. So here it is, guys. Here it is. This is one of their main value proposition. Like, again, guys, I would highly suggest that you do your best going through all of these different accounts because there's different options here for their blockchains, and you can see key pairs is one of their options. Certificates is another one. Certificates on the network can be attached to an account. Remember, I said there was lots of accounts to serve as digital credentials that validate the identity, qualifications, and any capabilities of participants within the system. So again, it certifies that the individual is who the individual says they are on many fronts, as you can see. Guys, scope and flexibility, dynamic nature, compliance and security. This is compliance and security is where what they're trying to do is be compliance again, so there's less friction. So you can get your certificates and so on and so forth, and that's that. So digital signatures, guys, I'm not going to get through all this, but they have their algorithm standards. You can see that post-quantum readiness. They're saying that they're ready for quantum computing and their algorithm is ready to be migrated to fully support, the post-quantum cryptography that may come around the corner very soon. A lot of blockchains are offering this and suggesting this as well. Data integrity, open ledger, append-only ledger, cryptographic hashing, chain. Guys, lots of stuff here. Go check it out. Read as much as you can on this. This is a full-on blockchain with tons of information that even for myself, like I said, it requires a little bit more detail. And from a retail perspective, guys, it's just going to take a lot of study. I would say the majority of the understanding needs to come here into this level and looking at the different accounts that they offer and knowing the differences on what the value proposition is of each of these accounts. All right, guys, that was a brainful, definitely a mouthful as well. Let's continue moving on. I took a look at their Explorer. Their Explorer, lacks, this is not a full-fledged Explorer, unfortunately. It lacks the detail. There's nothing really here. I would love to see a minimum. I want to see wallet distribution to see who's holding what and the amount that they're holding. That would be obviously very valuable. So for me, this Explorer is just scratching the surface of capabilities. Unfortunate, but let's move on. Again, the roadmap, I was looking for an official roadmap, and I was able to find this. Is it valid? Is it the best roadmap? Not really. A roadmap should have a bit of a time schedule. Give me an idea of where we're going and when. It doesn't have to be to the accuracy, but quarterly at least. I like the fact that they're trying to get into, the SDK of Android, which is good because again, getting involved in mobile applications is probably the best thing that they could do. Android being a little bit easier to get into. I'm glad that they're doing that. Pruning keeps nodes slim and efficient, and checkpoints periodic total global ordering. Guys, a lot of this, like, education is so important here. Anchors with built-in KYC support, and some things before mainnet, which is already issued, already there, ready to go. Okay, so they even have the iOS apps directly on the KEETA network. Pretty good stuff for iOS users and stuff like that. So again, guys, let's keep on going. We'll do our best here. I went through their socials because I figured, like their tech is complicated, and but at least they're there, on a social perspective. The world's most scalable blockchain network. You can see, let's see, we're following, okay, good, we're following there. They got 31,000 followers, not many, okay, not many followers. So, but for its size, they're getting some good engagement lately. Okay, now I know their price in the last 24 hour has been dropping, but it's not exclusive to KEETA, so to just keep that in mind. Market sentiment at the current moment within the last 7 days haven't been the greatest, but it is what it is, guys. Just understand the market works in peaks and valleys, and so does the sentiment. And at the current moment, we have this pinned comment: KEETA network is the most scalable blockchain in the world. Guys, I've read this many times by many blockchains. Just throwing that out there. Capable of 10 million transactions per second and 400 millisecond settlement. Okay. When the ecosystem is fully on and working at maximum congestion, then we'll run the metrics. This designed to connect the world's financial system. That's important, because like I said, the only way it's going to do that to connect the current financial system is by being fully compliant, and that's what it is with their built-in KYC, digital identity on-chain, FX, and flexible rules engine. Lots of stuff here, guys. I'm not going to reread this, but you can see that they do a great job highlighting their value proposition, but not allowing us to understand how it works. That's a tough thing, right? That's very tough, because in theory, I love these statements. I love what it's saying, even though I don't appreciate KYC, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it's doing the right thing, for that strategies to comply and all of that. But if you don't understand its tech, even from a superficial, because again, we're not engineers and stuff, it's difficult to really digest, right? So let's keep on going down. KEETA is partnering with Agora, which recently completed its Series A with Paradigm to drive TradFi, DeFi, and convergence. Okay, so there's lots of good partnerships that I was able to go through in the last little while. One of it, roadmap update. Okay, I just showed you that. We talked about already. This one right here, KEETA and the Google Cloud. This was one of the bigger ones. Not just for KEETA network, but for the entire blockchain industry. We're seeing a lot of these Google Cloud nodes. Guys, do we appreciate those or not? Again, as I'm saying, it's up to you on how you stand on centralized infrastructures. Knowing that the Web3 space has their own DPIN, right? So that's one of the things. Why can KEETA partner up with another DPIN project or come up with their own DPIN? Why do we have to use Google Cloud? Is it because maybe one of the investors are ex-Google? I don't know, guys. I don't know. It is what it is. KEETA and Solo have partnered to launch the first blockchain native credit bureau. So very traditional place, right? Built on KEETA's high-performance blockchain, the system enables verified financial identities through Solo's Pass, on an on-chain profile that consolidates KYC, KYB, income, crypto assets, and financial data into a single user permission identity. Guys, this is next level identity mining. I don't know what to tell you. Bullish, not bullish? You tell me. Let me know in the comment section below. Is this something that represents what the crypto space is about? For me, I'm not really interested in this type of level of KYC. I don't expect this to be the standard throughout the space, but there's room for it. We know we have to share this space with the traditional space anyway. So is it have good fundamentals? Yes. Is it something that we support? It's up to you. Okay, so let's move on. We are excited to officially become welcome Footprint as the first KYC provider on KEETA network. More KYC. You can see that a lot of their focus is that KYC and that transparency to meet those standards for traditional markets. Continuation, chain spec, assisted in the background by serving as external third party to verify the results of our tests. So just testing the chain and Web3 top blockchain performance tracker, just testing the performance of the chain. That's their little relationship that they got there. So overall, okay, good partnerships, good stuff there. And then again, let's move on. We got KEETA, the world's most scalable blockchain network. Right here, you can see they have a 14 associate members, not a big team, as I can see here on LinkedIn. There could be more members, but I encourage these members to be represented here on the KEETA LinkedIn. Sometimes they choose not to, but I would suggest that they do. LinkedIn has become a big part of a lot of us who research teams. Speaking of the teams, let's kind of just go. We have Gabe here, head of communications, head of communications, business development. So he's been in here for a good while, for about a year or so. University of St. Francis. Okay, and that's about it. I don't see anything else regarding his education, what degree, what this, nothing of that sort. So I don't know really where his background lies. Is that good? I don't know, guys. I really don't know. There's ambiguity here. Let's keep on going. We have Tanvir, software engineer, leader. Okay, so it sounds interesting. He's full time for 3 years and a month doing this thing here as a senior backend engineer, lead software engineer manager. He seems like he has the experience even just within KEETA. And then you see vice president of engineering, partner software architect. So he's definitely has the background, right? He's there in throughout this the engineering field since 2011, as you can see. That's pretty good. Southern Hampshire University Business Administration and certification of cybersecurity. I'm looking for, I'm sure he has some other comp sci maybe, or cybersecurity, liberal studies, liberal arts, science. No, I don't see anything really Bachelor of Science. I don't see anything comp sci related, but you never know. Maybe he didn't put it or whatever it is. He's an engineer, guys. He's been doing it for a good while. So I kind of, good testimonials here regardless. Okay, so let's move on. We got Roy, CTO at KEETA, technology officer, president of engineering, research and development network, Amazon Web Service, AWS. He's been working there for about 2 years. That's pretty good to have that back-end infrastructure knowledge on AWS cloud services. We have consultant and lead developer at Nano Foundation, senior system architect. So we got some engineering for sure, and computer science degree at Mississippi State, and again some AWS architectural associate certificates and such. Pretty good. Okay, some endorsements, and that's pretty good. And then last but not least, because there are many other young talented individuals on this team, but we're going to talk about the founder now. Like, the founder seems or the CEO, let's put it that way. It seems like an interesting individual, but as you go through his profile, I do see some engineering, like, okay, besides KEETA, I see software engineer, founded in 2009, headquarters in San Francisco, worked there for 1 year, sharing marketplace where travels can, so basically a car rental service software. Okay, sounds good. Software development, Objective-C, and some other skills. Okay, good. And then we come down here, 2 years as a co-founder at BrainBlocks. So this is interesting because it seems like this is the first one of the first crypto related projects that he's embarked on, and he's the co-founder. And it seems like he brought it from a small project to something big, right? Or bigger, let's put it that way. And then we have software engineer, and then some more software engineering, and since 2016, not big companies or anything like that. And the software engineer, self-employed, that's about almost 2 years, a year and a half of self-employed. I'm not sure about all of that, but some iOS development license certificate, and then I don't see any education other than, okay, some experience and experience. It is what it is, guys. I'm not saying that he's not qualified. I'm just saying that it seems like he's very young in his career. and still trying to make a big name for himself, which I respect, because ultimately that's where the hustle comes in. Young hustler teams are the ones that change the world. And for me, that's amazing. That's why you guys know that ultimately I've been in this space for a while. I support small young teams much more than I support large big teams, because they're the ones that are going to make the big changes in the industry. And the support, you support the underdogs, you support the newcomers, and eventually they start small, but then they become giants. And especially when you have good teams, young teams with hustler mentality, you definitely want, I want to back those, no doubt. So they seem like they're doing their thing. Small, young team, good talent. It is what it is. All right, guys. So that's that. So generally speaking, guys, the project itself, if we just kind of go back for full circle here, it seems simple at the landing page of the website, but once you start getting into it with all the accounts and all the little added features within their ecosystem, it quickly becomes complex. And because of this, I think that's going to be a little bit of friction for individuals. As you guys know, I do release an infographic for you guys every single week that highlights some of the details regarding the project. I'm going to post this on social so you can have this little cheat sheet going forward. Let's take a look at what the ecosystem is about real quick. Again, just a little bit of a recap, because their ecosystem is quite intense. They have the account chains, the token accounts, certificates, rule engines, subnets, operator accounts, generated account, governance, identity, a lot of different things. And because they have everything worked out, and maybe for a lot of us we don't even understand how, but it's there and the tech seems interesting, and we see a lot of this already, a lot of the talk about some of these like subnets and governance and a lot of this kind of stuff. The only ones is like the account chains and the and the generated accounts, and some of them are just a little bit new, but for the most part these are all kind of like different words for different things, for the same things, basically. So 10 out of 10 overall on their ecosystem. I think that they're still cooking it up, and I think they have a lot still, to issue, but still they're definitely present with some of their tech, which is awesome. The utility, there's a lot there as well. Used to pay transaction fees, staked, but they're very low. Just throwing that out there. Staking and network security, governance over protocol upgrades, and network decisions. Note that I couldn't find anything that told me that the governance or the token utility had something to do with distributing liquidity, right? Like, how does the tokens that are being held in their in treasury, how are those being distributed? Now, as you know, even from a tokenomics perspective, because you guys know that I cover tokenomics, there's not that much transparency. So if you go back here and you start to look for tokenomics, there's nothing really giving you much regarding tokenomics. So let's quickly, token creation, you can see application, tokenizing the real world, tokenomics right here. If you go, all you have is this. Okay, very simple, very simple. Okay, strategic reserve is 40%, foundation is 10%, community ecosystem growth is 50%. I like the simplicity, but this foundational treasury, who is in control of this? Even though it is a linear release or behind a vesting schedule, who's in control of the tokens as they get released? And this is very clear that 40% is going into the language, guys. It's a little bit off, the language. Look, this says strategic reserve, but if you look here, we have one for the community, we have foundation, and then where does the early investors and team come into here? Well, I'll tell you this: strategic reserve tokens, early investors and team, strategic reserve tokens. That's all that's left. Process of elimination, guys. So that means that the early investors in the team represent 40% of the token distribution. That's a lot, guys. Over time, that's a lot. And if you look at this, if you amalgamate foundation, which who's in control of the foundation? It's not the DAO, not governance. Again, we're going to go back to that infographic in a second, guys. Sorry for making this detour because I felt like I totally skimmed over this. You go foundation, you can see, and then you have the early investors in the team, and then this is the community, which is healthy, no doubt. But if you amalgamate all of this, it's 50-50, guys. It's quite a bit, right? And then, guys, a lot of dilution begins very, very soon. It ramps up significantly in 2026. This bear market for KEETA is going to be rough. The bear market for KEETA is going to be rough. KEETA is very likely to retrace significantly in this bear market because of all the dilution that's going to happen by the unlocks during moments of low demand, right? This is something that we have to understand. So let's jump right back into this guy right here. When I look at the governance over the governance, all the really governance is doing is upgrades and network decisions. What about tokenomics? What about that allocation for the foundation? That who's running that? The team, the core team? I don't know. Incentivized ecosystem growth and development. That is clearly there. There's a lot of tokens that are going to be placed for that to get that going. And as you guys know, the tokenomics are very important. And we'll talk about that in a second as well. Utility roadmap. Roadmap has no dates, dedicated to keeping community updated on X. That's valid. Okay, that's 100%. And I like the fact that they're slowly transitioning or getting into spearheading the Android SDK. For me, that's good. We have a lot of Android users out there from different fronts, and I think that would be most people focus on iOS first, but I think even recently the sentiment has been changing in preference from iOS to Android. Again, that's just a small observation. Maybe I'm front running that idea as well, but I just like the fact that they're getting involved in Android SDK regardless. So, from a roadmap perspective, clarity perspective, it's never better to have a proper roadmap with some dates. Never, nothing is better than that. So, there is actually, I correct myself, some sort of blog that is created or structured like a time or date based roadmap. I've seen that before and it looks spectacular in the sense that it's like literally a calendar defining the roadmap, but it's also a blog. You can click the calendar, click the different events, and it will tell you exactly what their mission is on that time at that time frame. For me, that is great. So some sort of roadmap, guys, with a bit of an idea of where they're allocating their capital and time and human capital is super important. Small young team. CEO started developing in 2018, and since then the transition into work KEETA has been a little bit vague because self-employed and small companies and this and that, and then slowly transitioning with a little bit more mainstream development, but still very young career in my opinion. Strong engineering talent is there throughout the team, not just concentrated to the CEO, because even with the CEO there's not much details there. But I would say I was even a little bit too free or too generous with the 8 because of the lack of ambiguity. There's lots of ambiguity there, the lack of clarity. Sorry, it would be nice to know a little bit more about the team. They're fully docs, no doubt, but if that's what they got, if that's their educational background and their experience background, a lot of them, especially some of the core team, they're still very, very young, so very speculative still. Social, the socials are good. They only got 32 or 31,000 followers, not, but their engagement is good for their size. Relative. It's all relative. Obviously, the community is small, but could be strong. Discord is active, but no Telegram. Website and documentation is well developed. It is there. The documentation is there. Is it hard to digest? Yes, it is. Is the website nice and clear? Yes, it is. Discord is great, but no Telegram. Not necessary. But that Telegram, do we introduce a Telegram? Maybe, but based on their target market or their branding and their positioning, market positioning, they want to be considered very institutional. They want to be institutional, and Telegram doesn't really represent that space. To be honest, neither does Discord really, but at least they have a Discord, and Discord can be a little bit better from that regard. So I give them a 9 out of 10, but even still here, I'm being a little bit generous as well. I feel I'm a little bit generous here. Let's continue going down. Tokenomics, not the greatest. Early investors, team, and foundation hold 50% of the tokens, guys, whereas the rest of it, the community has the other 50. Now, right now, we don't have a worry about dilution. It is very clear because we have to wait for the vesting schedule, as I showed you, to kind of get those tokens out to early investors, team, and foundation. But if you look at the timing, the bear market's going to be ruthless, and we're going to see a lot of those tokens unlocked during the bear market, while the community tokens are still, are pretty much coming out and doing their thing, while the investors are getting paid. They're going to, have an incentive to sell. Vesting ramps up at the end of 2025. Be careful there, guys. Be very, very careful. As you can see, the tokenomics are small. We're talking about a $277 million market cap project. Trading volume is quite high at the current moment. Circulating supply, 42% of the market cap of the supply is there. So, we definitely have some more tokens to be issued at the current moment. And that the majority of it is going to be coming from, again, this early investors team and foundation. Relationships, some good relationships there, guys. We already talked about them. 10 out of 10 for a small project, small team. The fact that they're there with Google Spanner, and the something else that I didn't talk about, it was the UAE and Brazil relationship and the AFC sponsorship, which is basically the Asian football qualifiers, and obviously the UAE and Brazil local agency expansions, which is good, and so on. So we got some good stuff here. The Google Spanner, which is it's calibrated for stress testing. Okay, and then we talked about the footprint, which is KYC certificate provider, the Solo Pass, which is on-chain credit bureau via identity credentials, and the chain spec, obviously there, a validated network performance, and so on. So lots of good stuff in the last little while with regards to relationships. And finally, last but not least, exchanges. There's no Binance or Coinbase, but pretty much everywhere else, which means I wasn't able to find a Binance and Coinbase listing. Is this something do I expect? Is this something that maybe wasn't, is not on the aggregators on CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap? Guys, let me know, because I don't even trade on Binance or Coinbase. But nonetheless, I didn't see any documentation related to being listed on those two heavyweight exchanges, which means that we're relying on smaller exchanges to provide liquidity to the market. So it's not the healthiest. Plus, if you're looking for a trading opportunity, as soon as you see any announcements of a Binance or Coinbase or both listing, guys, we could get some good pumpage in the price. And that's usually what happens. It's a trading moment, I guess, for some people based on the strategy, but just be careful for volatility when that does happen. But right now, unless it gets listed on Binance and Coinbase, which is the majority of the large liquidity providers, guys, there's still that opportunity. So think of the glass half full or half empty. It's up to you. Ultimately, guys, KEETA, this was an interesting deep dive. As you guys know, I do lots of deep dives. And over time, it gave me the opportunity to kind of like compare, and comparing different projects and different and their documentation and their approach and so on. So the verdict is this: it's an L1 payment solution, DAG, real world assets, and it's on Coinbase. It's a Base project, which could be very bullish given that Base has just recently announced that they are going to have their own coin, and because of this, we're going to start to see different projects being listed, and more liquidity and more activity. Foundation allocation are under centralized control. It is under centralized control, which is interesting, because the reality is you have to choose a team. Do you like centralization or not? Centralization is not a bad thing, for a lot of people, right? We've been living in a very centralized world and produced many millionaires, right, and billionaires in our current economics, right? The thing is that crypto really focuses on decentralization. Now, it's on a scale. It's not completely decentralized or completely centralized. Having a foundation allocation that is under control of the core team is not a bad scenario, right? It makes that liquidity easy, accessible. They need runway, for marketing dollars and whatever else they may need, which is great. But what about the rest of the tokens? That's the problem. And it's not like this was the only form of centralization. The team and the early investors get a huge chunk, 40%, which means that if you amalgamate it all, the team and the early stakeholders are in control of about 50% of the tokens. Not a good idea. Explorer has limited detail. No wallet distribution on the Explorer. I don't like that. I want to know the wallet distribution. Very compliant, which again, is it a positive or a negative? This is up to you. If you appreciate that type of stuff, and very compliant, can take the first mover advantage. Guys, this is a big point here, because there's no real payment system at the current moment here in the crypto space that has really spearheaded or penetrated through the market. Okay, and now we have Base all involved, and we know Coinbase is, big ecosystem, could provide a big ecosystem going forward. And the payment infrastructure, both payment and Base, are small, up and coming narratives, right? They're narratives that are just picking up. and don't have first mover advantages, right? Especially the payment narrative. So it could be a good one, no doubt. Taking the compliant approach will remove barriers to entry in the global markets. That's a fact. Now, is it going to be completely something that everybody kind of adopts? I know that there's some people in this crypto space that will not adopt this because of its level of compliance, and it's going to be the first project to bend over when regulators ask, for them to comply. And is that something, that you thought of? I don't know, guys. Again, this is what you have to define where you stand on that front. Which, with such complex architecture, education is key. So what happens is with the architecture that I went through with you guys, like it was so complex that I had to take a retail approach even for myself, in the sense that I didn't even try on this deep dive to get into too much detail because not only would I lose you, but it would be hard for me to explain as an individual. I shouldn't have to have a university degree in computer science or in economics or in rocket science or whatever the case is to understand a project, particularly with payments. Because if you want, the only way payment system succeeds is mass adoption from retail, right? That's the only way this succeeds. And if a retail investor does not understand what's going on from its stack, that's a big area of friction, tons of friction in my book. This is, again, my opinion only, and none of this is financial advice or anything like that. This is what I'm thinking. You can agree or disagree. Let me know in the comment section below if you agree or disagree or what's your points here. But the fact that we have Eric Schmidt, ex-CEO of Google, although it sounds great on paper, I've seen projects with great ex-CEOs. And you guys know the projects. This is not about other projects. I just want to tell you that there are so many good projects out there with great ex-CEOs of great, big, huge, massive tech companies. And the token does, or the coin does nothing, right? So although as an investor, as an involver, he can open tons of doors, which is great for KEETA, but ultimately there's no guarantee of success because of it. I have seen it firsthand that is the case. Okay, so although it is a bonus, it shouldn't be your only reason to be buying KEETA. Okay, there's so many other reasons I presented to you today, and this is why I say if KEETA can reach $1 billion market cap, and hit $1 billion, it's very likely that we hit about $2.50, give or take. If we can get to about $3 to $5, I wouldn't be surprised. The thing is that will the market adopt such centralized or centralized or even compliant projects like this? I don't know, guys. It's a tough one to agree with, but it is what it is. I give this project an 8 out of 10 because of its complete focus on what it has to deliver. Its ecosystem is large and it's got a lot of good stuff here. It's just hard to digest, like I mentioned. All right, guys, let's move on here. I know you're here to talk about charts as well, so let's begin. Let's see what's going on there with the KEETA chart, because ultimately KEETA has been doing pretty good, but then in the last little while, we've seen a little bit of a retracement. Now, the retracement is not the greatest, but it is within the range. When we see price action within range like this, there's nothing to worry about. And I'm just going to tell you this. We covered this one on the live streams. Guys, I'm live every single night at 8 p.m. EST. If you guys don't know, feel free to join. I take requests. We talk about setups. We look for opportunities. And unfortunately, we've seen KEETA retrace from the levels. And I made it very clear that if we break below here, it's going to be a confirmed break of structure. And we did break the structure by making a lower low here. After breaking that lower low, and even within this retractive type of move, and you can clearly see that it's not an impulsive move. That one was. Impulsive move down, retractive move. Now we're getting a bearish response that represents another impulsive move. There's no doubt to me that we're gonna hit the bottom of the range. Well, guess what, guys? Welcome. We've hit the bottom of the range. Now the question is, do you buy the dip? Okay, this is where it's at now. This is where decision time comes. We're very close to the bottom. Okay, are you going to nickel and dime for the best entry, or are you going to start scaling in here? Now we can see that below 56, 57 cents, there's an empty volume gap that could allow the price to fall through a little bit more. And then the last line in the sand is this bottom right here. Do we actually get support there? We haven't gotten oversold. We do see an expansion coming in still. EMAs are facing down with red histogram bars in the bearish control zone. The daily still looks bearish, and Bitcoin is still looking slumpy. So when you see such price action, you have no choice but to remain bearish or at least neutral until the market resolves. Getting into fresh shorts right now is dangerous. I wouldn't be getting into any fresh shorts. But buying the dip right now is obviously much better, but going all in on that buying the dip shopping spree is also risky because we could come down here, even form another structure, sweep, backtest in spring. Anything of this could still happen. Even at this point, we can even get a quick reversal, even right now. But again, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know, but I can tell you that we definitely need to be prepared for any possibility. And we can see that as KEETA and the rest of the space is falling, we need to prepare, guys. We need to prepare. Now, if I were to be looking at an opportunity, yes, I would be looking at maybe accumulating a little bit. Maybe 25%. If it came down and deploy another 25%, and then leave the rest of the 50% for a market structure, and then build into the market structure. Because ultimately, you are buying the bottom of the range, and we're hoping with with all our might that we don't break below this low. We break below 43 cents or 40 cents, we're in a little bit of trouble here, guys, because breaking below there might define continuation to the downside in the abyss, which zero price action. Get a rejection here, confirmed even more of a rejection. Horrid. Okay, so this is where magic happens. This is a trading moment. Guys, you've been waiting patiently to buy into KEETA. If you're bullish, now is the time to focus. Okay, guys, we're going to be covering this again live throughout the week. I'll make some dedicated videos in the afternoon regarding it. Guys, don't forget that deep dive infographic is going to be posted all over the socials in a few minutes after I post the video. Join the Discord. It's absolutely free, guys. If I've offered you any value in this deep dive, do the channel a massive favor. Slap the like button. It does really help out with the algorithm. If you want to follow me on the socials, the links are in the description. Better yet, guys, join the Discord. The Discord is where it's at. Lots of good alpha, trade setups, fundamentals, and learning material. The best part is it's absolutely free. Take care, guys. Have a good one. And don't forget, buy the dip.